Okay, in this episode of Throttle Stop Garage, we're going to have a look at how we build fixtures for our welding table. Alright, so we all know that having a welding table is great, but without fixtures for that welding table, it's not going to be a whole lot of use. So we're going to have a look at how we get done a whole bunch of different styles of these in this particular episode. So we're going to have a look at clamps, we're going to have a look at material hold down, we're going to have a look at stops for work, we're going to have a look at how we make just little things to make jigging on your welding table a whole lot better. Oh, also, none of this stuff is anything that you can buy. All of this stuff is stuff that you can build. Okay, so first up, I found the local Princess Auto / Harbor Freight had on sale these vice grip style clamps, but of course they don't work on the table without a base. So I had to stop and fabricate myself up a little base for them. Really, no big deal, pretty simple stuff. But this was the start for building all the tools. A little bit of drilling and tapping going on here, and then we can get these things threaded in, and then I'm just going to cut them all out and weld them up, and super quick little way of making those things work well. All right, I know I may have mentioned it before, but I always prefer to lay out, drill and tap my holes with the part in one. It just makes work holding a little bit faster and gets it done more quickly. Okay, so now we're just going to split this. All right, my saw is a little bit dull today, so just going to use the cold chisel method in order to cut this thing apart. It didn't work too bad. Pretty nice clean cut. All right, let's get the rest of this finished off. All right, so then I find the right spacer to get those pieces done, and just just minutes, right, before you get it done. Now, when I was at the Princess Auto, they also had a bunch of welding clamps for sale. Now, these aren't the super high quality ones that I actually usually prefer to use, but they certainly are good enough with a 5/8 bolt and a little bit of cutting and grinding to make yourself some clamps that can hold things together. Now, the clamps on your welding bench aren't really designed to put a massive amount of gronk on material. You're just meant to be able to go in, and there you can see the genius of those hold downs already. Like, try to cut those off easily and safely without being able to hold it down to your bench. These work so effectively. And you can really push then, right? Like, you can actually make these tools cut the way they're supposed to cut. And then when I'm welding this stuff on, just for those that are interested in the weld settings, I'm actually able with my big welder. This is no longer we're no longer set. We're spray transferring here. We're not short circuit transferring that. So these are, I mean, it goes in real hot, right, and real fast. But the weld structural, and it's much better than welding it up cold. All right, so again, just cut the threads off those 5/8 bolts, and all of these clamps are done. Those are $25 a piece for me to produce, which is a heck of a lot less expensive than it is. Those are Canadian dollars, right? So a heck of a lot less expensive for me to make them, considering I can't buy these things. I get Trick Tools is about the only group out of the U.S. and a few others that'll actually sell me this stuff. But boy, is it ever frustrating. You say, I'd really like to buy this stuff. Here's my credit card. I got it ready. And they just won't sell it to you. So it's terrible. Okay, so with that done, I'm going to get rolling on making some stops. So the stops are going to be a little bit different. I want them to be able to mount to the table in a couple of different ways. So I have to drill and tap a hole in the bottom. So if I just want to use them as a stop, I can put them in just as a stop, but if I want to use them as a sort of something that'll stay vertical, then I will actually use the screw into the bottom of this, and then they pull down square to the table. So it sort of depends on however you want to use them. Now I don't have a metal lathe, so I'm just using my drill press here, and I've got a V block, as you've seen, set up, and I'm using the vise and the V block in order to hold things perpendicular, which I find works really well. I mean, again, as long as your bits are sharp, it's not going to spin or do anything silly. I didn't have any problems with that. Same for tapping, right? You try to hold that tap as perpendicular as you can, but
That's the bottom.
crappy taps. I did finally buy good taps, but these are not them.
Now we got enough thread in it. Yay! These are the worst taps you can have. They're absolutely crappy. They're also all I have. I know, I gotta invest in better taps. Everyone loves the kits, right? Oh, I'll save money. Oh, you won't. It's a bit pain. Every time you have to use these crappy things. Every quarter turn. So once it gets down, the chips are being forced out the end of the tap. So they're going to start plugging at the bottom of the hole. So the tap comes for quick blast of air. There's no way the camera's going to pick it up, but nice threads all the way to the bottom.
So we get the table up to a nice height there. Again, I don't have a lathe, so I found some seamless tube that was 3/4 of an inch on the outside, so not around 20 mil, and then 16 on the inside to fit that 16 mil or 5/8 rod that we're using. So I'm just quickly going. I'm not even using any filler. It doesn't need it. You just sort of melt it in around the edge and then check it. So a little bit of squaring up there when I was making them, and it turned out they're dead perfect, fine, totally happy with that. Again, I've never seen tube that's actually square, so this stuff's going to be close enough. Then we move on to getting the parts tidied up that I received for the squares. Now they're, again, water jet cut, and then they were kind of left to rust, so it's quite a bit of work just to get these buffed off. And then it was on to a vinegar bath, so I let them sit for 24 hours in the vinegar bath, and that'll strip off all of the rust as well as all of the mill scale, actually, off of these steel parts. So that's a real good bonus.
We've now had the parts sitting in the vinegar bath for about a day. Let's get these things put away. And I've come out and checked and stirred and sort of moved them around in the bath so that they're all getting the vinegar effect. So what we're gonna do is just have a look so you can still see. So let me just see if we can get that focused a little better. You can still see like all the rust on the inside, but and you see how hard I'm working, and that's just gone perfectly clear. Okay, so then what I've done here, so I'm just going to scrub, and you can see the mill scale just basically it's wiping right off. Just a little bit of work with my little wire brush here, and then I'm going to dip it in a bucket with a neutralizing solution of just water and baking soda. So that should neutralize the acid here. So, because these parts were so heavily rusted, that's kind of what I thought was needed here. I just didn't want to deal with trying to do this any other way. I could have sandblasted them, but this is just no effort. So, it's actually quite a bit of work to sandblast this stuff. Really no work to do this. And again, all of these parts I designed myself along with the weld table because Certiflat won't sell to Canadians. Like, so, you know, there's easier ways to do this, but not if you live in my country. So from intensely rough, scabby parts to that's a good looking part right there. I will hit these with the wire brush one more time before I weld them up, but I am satisfied that we now have a good part.
So I cut off most of the scrubbing and buffing and whatever that I did on these parts. I don't know, it probably took me 3/4 of an hour or something like that to do them all. And considering the condition they were in, that's a pretty reasonable amount of time, especially with all the edge work, right? It's all the edges, the holes, the everything. If you tried to, even with a wire brush, you're not going to get all the rust out of there. So with the parts now fully cleaned up, I just give them a little blow off with the airline, and then a squirt with some WD-40, and that will keep them from rusting. So now we get to assemble them. So pretty easy, actually. There wasn't anything that went wrong or terribly right. I was figuring out how to clamp a few things up here as we went along, but try to keep everything as square as you possibly can, right? Just because it was cut doesn't mean it's perfect, so you do have to check it and make sure you're happy with the fit before you go and tack all these things up. And I only say that because I know I tacked one of these things in backwards, one of the 6-inch, the 6-inch ones, so the 150 mil ones. I put it together backwards. So anyway, for anyone that ever comes to the shop, I'm going to tell you it's a feature, but now you know it was a mistake to do it that way. Anyway, we'll just watch these ones on the way out. So here it is, all finished. The only problem? I put the little ones together backwards. But it doesn't really matter. They can just be flipped around. So I'm not fixing that, because that would be an act of insanity. Alright, let's get back to building a car. So with the big belt sander out, all I'm doing here is just knocking the mating surfaces down so that they're perfectly flat. I am checking them on the bench against my big machinist block to make sure I'm getting them. They were actually pretty square. The 12 or 30 mil ones were 300 mil ones, I guess, were a little bit out, but doesn't take long to knock them in. It takes even less time when the belt's not completely dull. So whip on a new belt and then, whoa, hey, that works a whole lot better. It's funny, I don't even hardly feel that thing rocking in the garage, but when you watch it on the video, it looks almost dangerous. It's not. It's fine. Anyway, put that away and get back to work. All right, out comes the reamer, and we get those holes just touched up just to make sure they're all gonna be fine. Not that much work to get these finished up. They're pretty close, but always good to have them better than just close.
Okay, so that's everything done. So we've got the clamps, we've got two shorter ones and two taller ones. I made two of the hold downs. Again, that's just a bought clamp, but it needed a special base to fit into the table. I made a whole mess of the stops. So these little guys, and they fit great. And then if you don't want them just to be a loose stop, then there's fasteners that go in the bottom with some washers to tighten them up. The V pads and these pads, which stand work off the table, so your table doesn't get caught with a bunch of spatter on it. Those are purchased, as are these stops. It just wasn't worth making them for. I was able to purchase these from Trick Tools, so they were willing to sell them to me, which is real nice. The whole thing is going to go together with all sorts of shoulder bolts. So they're 5/8 shoulder bolts. Takes a 1/2 inch fastener, bolts everything down perfectly. You get whatever you want. That's how the squares ended up. So you can see the surface finish on those is just beautiful, and they're dead square. Right, so they're just perfect. I did tune them till they were, well, as perfect as they can be. And then you can see some of the use of it, right? So you can put the 6-inch square on the 12-inch square, make yourself a ledge to put, you know, put a tube or put whatever it is that you need on there. And then everything else is in my kit. So I've built the kit up for this. So there's the spare V-pads, the flats. I have 3 different sizes of the shoulder bolts, the horizontal clamps, as well as my extra stops. All right, I can't wait to actually start building stuff with the table. Done. That's it for welding tables for now, and we have to get back to work on the rest of the car. So coming up, we're going to have merge collectors, and we're going to start working on the turbo manifold. Anyway, that's it for now. Keep your stick on the ice.